When it comes to film criticism, few voices carry the same lasting weight as Roger Ebert's. Revered for his deep insight and willingness to challenge cinematic norms, Ebert didn't hesitate to go against popular opinion, even when it came to landmark films. One such case was Straw Dogs, 1971, a brutally violent and deeply controversial thriller directed by Sam Peckinpah and starring Dustin Hoffman. While it's now considered a provocative classic with an 82% Rotten Tomatoes rating, Ebert panned it upon release. Even more surprising, he later praised the widely derided 2011 remake, flipping conventional wisdom on its head and proving once again that Ebert saw cinema through his own unique lens. The original Straw Dogs, 1971, a landmark of brutality and controversy. Sam Peckinpah's Straw Dogs is remembered for two things: its unrelenting violence and its unshakable moral ambiguity. Adapted loosely from Gordon Williams' novel The Siege of Trencher's Farm, the film stars Dustin Hoffman as David Sumner, a mild-mannered American academic who moves with his wife Amy, Susan George, to a rural English village. What begins as quiet domestic life devolves into torment and eventually savage retribution, climaxing in one of cinema's most infamous home invasion showdowns. At the center of its controversy was the film's depiction of sexual assault, a scene so divisive that it was censored in multiple countries. Critics were split. Some praised it for pushing the envelope of cinematic realism, while others, including Williams himself, denounced it for glamorizing rape and glorifying violence. Peckinpah's portrait of a man pushed to his limits struck a nerve with audiences, many of whom saw it as a critique of masculinity, while others saw dangerous validation of it. Despite the polarizing reactions, Straw Dogs became a cult classic. Today, it's often discussed alongside A Clockwork Orange and Last House on the Left as part of a wave of early 70s films that tested the limits of on-screen violence. But Roger Ebert wasn't impressed. Roger Ebert's harsh critique of Straw Dogs. Ebert's original review of Straw Dogs gave the film a mere 2 stars out of 4. He wrote that the film was a violent, bloody, and sickening tale, and went so far as to call it a horrible experience. His issue wasn't just with the content, it was with what he felt was its message. Ebert accused the film of being morally reprehensible, suggesting that it reveled in brutality rather than condemned it. He particularly criticized the film's use of rape as a narrative device and argued that Peckinpah's supposed commentary on masculinity felt disingenuous, an exploitation masked as artistic insight. To Ebert, Straw Dogs was not profound, it was fascist. He believed the film validated vigilante violence and reinforced the idea that pacifism was weakness. While other critics hailed it as a raw examination of human nature under pressure, Ebert saw it as a dangerous celebration of primal instinct masquerading as character development. Enter the remake, a softer, safer Straw Dogs. When Rod Lurie released his 2011 Straw Dogs remake starring James Marsden and Kate Bosworth, most critics dismissed it as unnecessary, uninspired, and far too sanitized for the material. The film, which relocates the action from Cornwall to Mississippi, is nearly identical in structure but lacks the transgressive grit that made Peckinpah's version so notorious. Instead of a tense meditation on repressed rage and moral corrosion, the 2011 film plays more like a straightforward revenge thriller. Critics slammed it for offering nothing new, with many lamenting its decision to remake a film so embedded in its era and controversies. The remake currently holds a rotten 42% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And yet, Roger Ebert liked it. Why Ebert preferred the remake? Ebert gave the Straw Dogs remake a surprising 3.5 stars out of 4, describing it as intelligent, literate, and powerful. He appreciated the clearer moral framing and the psychological depth of the characters, especially David, whom he saw as more sympathetic and understandable in this version. Rather than a man who slowly embraces his inner violence, Marsden's David is portrayed as a reluctant hero forced to defend himself against escalating aggression. For Ebert, Lurie's film avoided the troubling sexual politics and murky morality of Peckinpah's original. While the 1971 version sought to blur the lines between heroism and savagery, the remake, to Ebert's satisfaction, drew a firmer distinction. The characters were more psychologically consistent, and the violence, while still intense, was earned by the story rather than indulged in for its own sake. A case of vision versus execution. Ebert's preference for the remake says a lot about his philosophy as a critic. He often judged films not by their source material or legacy, but by how well they executed their own vision. In the case of Straw Dogs, he found Peckinpah's vision unpalatable, manipulative, and needlessly cruel. In contrast, he found Lurie's vision clearer, more morally resonant, and more in line with modern sensibilities. Where most critics saw the remake as a toothless imitation, Ebert saw it as a correction, something that retained the thematic core without the sickness that permeated the original. To him, the film wasn't about David's transformation into a monster. It was about a man forced to fight back against real and present threats. The verdict? Roger Ebert's stance on Straw Dogs remains one of his more controversial takes, and it continues to divide cinephiles. While the original is enshrined as a boundary-pushing classic, it's also rightfully scrutinized for its depictions of violence and gender. The remake, though largely dismissed, was praised by Ebert for precisely the reasons others disliked it: its restraint, clarity, and moral framework. Whether one agrees with him or not, Ebert's reversal reminds us that film criticism isn't about consensus, it's about perspective. And few critics offered a more distinctive one than Roger Ebert.